The Zone Sports Familia, we are back. What is up, y'all? It's been way too long. Back in action, long overdue. The man, the myth, the legend. Your boy JD Dugan, back in the zone, trying to kick some content out, get back in the flow of it all. Been up in good old Montana last couple years, living in the snow, living with the bears, had a run-in with the bear, one of a kind experience. We'll get to that story and much more later, but the Zone Sports Familia, thank you. Shout out to you for taking the time to check out the program, getting back in action. We're going to go audio only the first couple episodes, and then we're going to get back to doing the video. Going to make this puppy bigger and better than ever. So let's just dive into it. What's trending? It's your boy JD Dugan, trying to get back in the zone. Like I said, it's up Montana. It was quite the journey, but the sports world has been popping, and there's no time to hesitate. Let's just dive into it with what's trending. NBA playoffs. That's obvious. First off, the Nuggets, defending champs, they're struggling a little bit. Did Jokic deserve the MVP? Let's just start right there. If you're starting an NBA team right now, where are you taking Jokic? Is he the MVP? Is he the one guy you say, if you have Jokic on your team, you have a chance to win the most games, you have a chance to make the finals? I don't know if that's the case right now with Jokic. I think Jokic is an extremely gifted player, extremely talented player. But if I'm picking a team, I'm probably taking Giannis, I'm probably taking Luka, and I'm probably taking Anthony Edwards and the SGA for the long term. But if you're trying to win a game right now, Luka and Giannis are my picks. Now back to Jokic. Did he deserve the MVP? You look at his numbers. The guy averaged like 26, 12, and 9. So statistically, it's almost impossible to argue those are MVP caliber numbers. But when you see what Luka did in Dallas, when you see like what other guys are doing, SGA on the Thunder, I could see why people are questioning this Jokic MVP. I think he's been deserving of some of the other ones. This one, I'm on the fence. But they're the defending champs. 26, 12, and 9 are still freakish numbers, and you could see why he won the MVP. I probably could have seen it going to Luka. I think he almost gets slept on at this point. It's kind of weird, but he hasn't won MVP yet, and he puts up MVP caliber numbers. This year he averaged 34 per game practically, 9 rebounds on almost 10 assists. That would be my MVP. Yeah, Kyrie's a heck of a player, but that Dallas squad, other than that, a lot of role players, scrappy squad, but nobody's looking at that roster and going, they are championship caliber. Luka is the difference maker. He probably would have been my MVP. Other guys I mentioned, like I said, Giannis, dealt with injuries. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the other one who was right there. Between him and Jokic, I'd probably go SGA, lean that way. Now that being said, did anybody see the Shaquille O'Neal clip of Shaq saying to Jokic's face, I think it should have been SGA. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should have won it. I like Shaq, but that was Shaquille O'Cringe. That was not a good look for Shaq. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what he felt he was proving by telling Jokic that, but it wasn't a great look. But speaking of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, let's just keep this one moving right along. I did want to ask a question to get to the topic a little. Is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander flying under the radar in the OKC right now? Anthony Edwards is getting all the hype. Said coming to Jordan, people are saying he's becoming the media darling, and rightfully so. He's a heck of a player. We're going to get to the Ant-Man in a second, what he has to do to become the face of the league. There's been a lot of talk about that. But as far as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes, the guy averaged 30 points per game. He had a freakish year himself, and just a silky smooth player. His game's maybe not exciting as Anthony Edwards. He doesn't sort of the rim, do those kind of things, and I'm a Clipper fan. I got every right to be salty about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander finding success because he should be in a Clipper uniform, but we traded him for Paul George. How did that one go in the long run? Story for another time. That being said, Gilgeous-Alexander flies a little more under the radar. It's not as much of a, voice in the media. Doesn't maybe bring the same attitude and tenacity to the floor as far as showing the emotion that Anthony Edwards does. But Anthony Edwards is just a rare breed. I think he's one of those guys who's got the Dwayne Wade, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. He's cut from that same cloth. There's a rare type of two guard that there's just certain guys who they could take any player in the league off the dribble. They're strong enough to finish over anybody. And as D Wade, it took a little more time to develop. Same with Jordan, but you look at Edwards, he's got a good shot. Kobe, obviously a great shooter. So he's in that caliber, and he's got the swagger to match it. I think that's why Ant's kind of taken over as the maybe top 2 guard in the league. But you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, his game actually reminds me a lot of kind of a more veteran Kobe Bryant. And the reason I say veteran is Gilgeous-Alexander might not be dunking over guys like young Kobe, but he's got that mid-range. He's great at getting to his spots. He really knows how to set his teammates up, and he can pretty much get his shot off whenever he wants. So there's some similarities there about a 6'6", lanky 2 guard. You kind of see the comparisons. Gilgeous-Alexander, I think technically a point guard, but he's very shooting guard-like. So we'll move along, but had to kind of break that one down because he's not getting quite the respect, but what makes Ant stand out is he just has that it factor, and that's why he can be the face of the league. What's it going to take? It's probably going to take Anthony Edwards winning a championship or going to the finals and putting on a show. I think if they go to the finals and maybe lose, you think of 2007 LeBron, you made it there, you kind of established yourself, you've been to that table, you've sat with the big boys. All right. So you think I think that's what's going to take Edwards. They need to make a finals run. The West right now, if they get past the Nuggets, it looks like it's theirs to lose. The Thunder are the real deal. The Mavs are still in it, and you can't count out the defending champs, so there's a long way to go. But if Anthony Edwards makes the finals and has some moments that make you sit there and go, they're in it, Ant's taking over the game in the finals on the biggest stage, then he could really be in that conversation as the next face of the NBA, and there's a very good chance that could happen. So don't bet against it. Speaking of the NBA and the face of the NBA, it's been LeBron for a long time. It's been Kevin Durant. It's been Curry. None of those guys made the second round. So what's next for the Lakers and the Suns? I do want to ask that. We'll get to what's next for the Warriors in other episodes. But Lakers just fired their coach. Suns just fired their coach. Pretty much both got scapegoated. Frank Vogel, he's a solid coach. Darvin Ham, I don't know if he's a great coach, but I don't know if he deserved to be fired after leading the team to the playoffs with a roster that really just was not good at all. The Suns especially, their problem, they had no depth. You got guys like Bull and other players, Drew Eubanks, playing significant minutes. That might work in the regular season, but in the NBA playoffs, no disrespect to those guys, that's not going to get you over the hump and win you a championship. Frank Vogel probably did not deserve to lose his job. Wouldn't be surprised if someone else takes a chance on him. The Lakers, meanwhile, Darvin Ham, he had some flaws. He had some moments. He said some things on the microphone that pretty much was bulletin board material for their opponents down the stretch in the playoffs. So you could see why he got fired. But at the end of the day, where do the Lakers go? Who is the coach that overnight turns that team into a success? Do you make LeBron a player coach? Half joking. It almost feels like the way to go at this point because you know LeBron's going to be running the show. Why not just give him the reins and say, hey, Bron, it's your thing. Draft Bronny. You call the plays on the sidelines, and then, hey, if it all falls apart, it's on you, buddy. I wouldn't blame the Lakers at all. Now, that being said, the Lakers, the reason I say Ham was a scapegoat, because there's nobody who's going to come in next year, in my opinion, unless they make some big moves to the roster, who's going to turn that thing upside down. But there's one name I will say comes to mind as a candidate who I would go all out if I was the Lakers, and I would pay, and that is a UConn head coach, Dan Hurley. Back up the Brinks truck and hire Dan Hurley. He just won back-to-back national championships at UConn. He's got a chance to be the next face of college basketball. But what's even better than that, be the guy who brings the Lakers back to the promised land and gets them back to championship contender year in, year out. That's about the top pinnacle of the sport of basketball. Lakers, Celtics, head coach running the show. The Lakers have been itching for a leader to take over that franchise and really run things and build a culture and establish a championship mindset year in and year out. Dan Hurley has done that at UConn, and he's done a heck of a job. You give that guy LeBron, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and a couple other pieces, there's a good chance Dan Hurley could turn that team into a top-tier contender. Have we seen him do it at the NBA level yet? No. But he's got an interesting, rare style of coaching. He's aggressive. He gets assertive. He gets pissed off. He yells at the refs. But the guy is a competitor. The guy brings that fire to the sidelines. And you look at that Lakers team down the stretch. That might have just been what they needed at times. Although, like I said, I don't think it was Darvin Ham, and I don't think Hurley's going to win you that series against the Nuggets. But at this point, you fired Ham. You got to move on somewhere. Why not bring in a guy with pure tenacity and bring some pride and fire back to a championship organization who's really fallen off the map? I'm a Clippers fan. I wish I can get on here and say, oh, the Clippers are in a better spot, but they got the oldest roster in the league, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better overnight. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. That's a story for another time. But the Lakers should back up the Brinks truck and hire Dan Hurley, pay him whatever it takes, make him the next head coach of the Lakers. Be a heck of a move. As for the Suns, like I said, I think Frank Vogel, 1 year as head coach, he was a total scapegoat. Don't sleep on them paying a guy like maybe Willie Green from New Orleans roster. Not quite what the Suns is, although for the long term, you could definitely argue the Pelicans are in a better position. But the point being, I don't know why that name just popped in my head. Look for him to be a candidate, but it sounds like Mike Budenholzer is probably going to get that job. Budenholzer, I thought he did a great job with the Bucks. You see how much his stability's been missed. That being said, is he really going to shake things up and be the guy to get the Suns over the top? Probably not. They need to reboot that roster. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade Kevin Durant. Don't be shocked if Durant ends up a Laker. That's just something I'm throwing out there. I don't know the logistics. I don't know the business side of it, but I would not be surprised one bit. All right, one last NBA thing on what's trending. The Zone with JD reboot. Just kind of rolling through some topics here, diving into it all. We'll get to a little NFL draft after that, and then we're going to get to our top dogs from around the sports world, where I break down the 5 biggest dogs from around the sports world this week. All right, let's close this out with the Pat Bev drama. He threw the ball at a fan. That was a big deal. Then he told the reporter he couldn't ask, or she couldn't ask questions because she doesn't subscribe to his podcast. Obviously unacceptable behavior, but the reason I bring this up is I think his reputation is what makes it worse. I like Pat Bev, one of my favorite players with the Clippers, heart and soul of that team. I'm definitely a big Pat Bev guy. That being said, around the league, he's known as a guy who will cause problems, as a guy who's going to get fired, as a guy who's going to get under people's skin. And I think when you let it carry over into the media and the fans, it's one thing to, your opponent treat him like that. You can get away with that. But when it carries over to the media and the fans, that's where it becomes an issue, and I think that's why it's really been such a big story. I say that because I am a Pat Bev fan. Just not a good look, and he kind of is known. It's like, I'm not going to compare him to Draymond, but it's like if Draymond does something, the hammer comes down a little harder because of his history. That being said, Pat Bev only got 4 games, probably could have been worse. I still got a lot of respect for the guy, but just overall not a good look. All right, let's move along to a little NFL action, starting with thoughts on the Michael Penix pick at number 8. That thing really set the draft on fire. Story of the draft. You look at it from afar and you go, why would a team pay Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed to bring in another young arm and challenge Kirk Cousins for his job, any of these kind of things? But when you really think about it from within the Falcons organization, I personally could see why the move makes sense. Kirk Cousins had his injuries. Kirk Cousins has always been a very good player. Has he ever been a guy you wake up and you go, is Kirk Cousins the best QB in the league? I don't think so. Now, is Michael Penix going to be that? Probably not. But what I'm getting at is, why not give yourself room to grow? Why not grab a guy like Penix? You look back and I think a lot of the deal with Michael Penix is his age. But you look back, a guy like Aaron Rodgers didn't make his first, year starter until he was 25 years old. You give Penix 3 years behind Cousins, Michael Penix has a real chance, and that's what I'm trying to say, of being a legitimate NFL starter. Kirk Cousins in 3 years, what's he going to be doing? Can you guarantee he's going to be healthy? Can you guarantee he's going to be there? I don't know. And that's just the reality of age. Brady did it. He's a rare guy, but you look at Aaron Rodgers. You get up there, and things start happening on the football field. It's a tough sport to play in your late 30s. So I do think the move from afar was a bad look for the organization. It didn't put Cousins in more of a position to succeed. But the guy's 35 years old. He's coming off a major injury. And you draft a kid like Michael Penix, who had a heck of a college career but had injury issues of his own. Maybe give him a couple years to settle into the NFL, build the Falcons into a winner, have those tools on the outside like Kyle Pitts, Drake London. They have those kind of guys, Bijan Robinson, a lot of talent. You build an offensive line, you let Cousins run the show for 2 years. Maybe he doesn't get them over the hump, and all of a sudden Michael Penix takes over that starting job. Think of Alex Smith and Mahomes. Took them to the next level. He elevated them. And that's kind of where I see the similarity. And like I said, from afar at number 8, I don't love the pick, but that's how the NFL draft went this year. Quarterbacks went early. Penix, I believe, was the 5th quarterback taken, something like that. So when you really think of the way it went down, him going at number 8 doesn't seem that crazy. Was a heck of a college player. And I don't know. I think that this is a move that when you look back in 10 years might seem like a great move. Because if Kirk Cousins has any issues, if he goes down, you have Michael Penix ready to step up and be that guy. Penix was the 4th quarterback taken, so had to correct on that. Anyways, overall, Kirk Cousins, hoping he comes back healthy. Be really cool to see him in Atlanta with those weapons, take that team over the top. But when we're talking 2-3 years down the road, coming off a major injury, new organization, new system, new setting, we'll see how it goes. Because in 10 years from now, that might be a pick you go, Falcons hit a home run. All right. One last NFL thing, and then we'll get to our top dogs. Close this thing out. The Zone with JD. It's been a long time coming. Thank you to everybody for taking the time to check it out. Definitely a lot of fun. We're definitely going to ramp this thing up, get some video back, get some guests on here, get the dog pound involved, get the Zone fam involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, that being said, let's close out the NFL talk with my Chicago Bears. Had to mention them. Caleb Williams at number 1. Here's the biggest thing with Caleb Williams. I want to say what my expectations are in year 1. It feels like the Bears need to win at least 9 games to satisfy the hype. He's the most hyped QB prospect in years. Yeah, we had Trevor Lawrence. But when you really think about it, Caleb Williams' star power has been on a different level. The NIL era, playing for 2 big-time colleges, Oklahoma and USC, 2 of the most powerful brands in the sport. Whatever it may be, he's got star power. He's flashy on the field and off the field. That all being said, I think he's coming into the league in a tough spot in one way. I think in a lot of ways he's set up for success. But it's almost like a double-edged sword. He's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. Odunze was a great draft pick by the Bears. Keenan Allen, a great acquisition. And DJ Moore had himself a career year last year with Justin Fields at QB. So the sky's the limit if Williams is as good as advertising for Moore. Now, what I'm getting at is it really speeds up the clock for how good Williams needs to be in the NFL from early on. Because if he came in and that roster was the roster last year, and they were the Chicago Bears with no Keenan Allen, no Rome Odunze, and you're looking at DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and a bunch of guys at receiver, and not an elite running back room, you'd be understanding if they went 5-12, 6-11. You bring in Allen, you bring in Odunze, all of a sudden you have arguably a top 5 receiving core in the league for a rookie quarterback. Yes, that's a gift, but it is a blessing and a curse because now the expectations are going to be ramped up. You're playing in a big-time market in Chicago where they are hungry to win. The Bears have been down bad for years, one of the worst franchises in the league. So I don't think coming in and winning 6 or 7 games and having more of the same that we saw with Justin Fields is going to satisfy that from Bears fans, and I think the national media is going to be ready to let Williams have it if he doesn't come in and ball out because the roster's there, and that's just how it goes in the modern era of quarterbacking. You're the number 1 pick. You're expected to produce from day one. You come in and happen to have great weapons. I don't want to say Hall of Fame caliber receiver, but Keenan Allen, his numbers when it's all said and done, he's going to be in some conversations for, best Chargers receiver of all time, maybe Hall of Fame caliber player. Let's see, career over 900 receptions. I mean, he's going to finish with 1,000 most likely, so it's possible. Odunze, top prospect or receiver, and DJ Moore, of course, like I said, coming off a career year. Long story short, I think Caleb Williams needs to get 9 wins. passed for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, less than 10 picks. That's realistic expectations, and that's what's going to take for him to not come in and be on the hot seat from early on in his career, because we've seen it with other top prospects. Trevor Lawrence is a guy who now the tables are turning on him a little, where they gave him some time. But I think Caleb Williams isn't Bryce Young. He's a star from day one. Bryce Young gave him time. The Panthers, horrible situation to come into. No weapons. His top weapon should have been DJ Moore. Instead, he's wearing a Bears jersey. So the point is, Williams is going to come in with a very high bar from day one. The Bears put him in a position to succeed. The fan base is hungry. The national media made him a star from very early on, and the NFL experts have been saying Williams was the top quarterback for a couple years now. They've been saying he's already could compete with Mahomes as one of the top guys in the league. I've heard that out there. So the bar is very high. Now, as a Bears fan, I'm excited. I'm happy to see the team on the uprise and have a chance. Now, to end this one, and this thought about Caleb Williams, it's really going to come down to how he performs early. And when he faces that adversity he's never felt before in college, yeah, USC had their ups and downs, but you're going up against the best of the best. How does he respond? That's going to be the biggest question. So I was going to get to the Tom Brady roast, but I don't have it in me right now. That's a whole nother episode for another time. A lot of fun in that, a lot of awkwardness, a lot of weird moments, a little bit over the top for me at times, and I'm pretty out there. That being said, it was really cool to see Brady and Belichick have at least a chance to kind of bury the hatchet. A lot of NFL legends, and we'll get to that another time. But that was my big takeaway is Brady and Belichick. I don't think they had probably the best relationship, but might not have been as bad as people made it seem like, because they seemed to be getting along. Maybe it was the tequila. Who knows? Let's get to our top dogs from around the sports world, and we'll close this thing out. First episode of The Zone with JD in a long time, but it's been fun. Thank you for checking out the show. So, this first edition of Top Dogs, where I break down the 5 biggest dogs from around the sports world this week, it's going to have some people who've been in the news the last few weeks. We're kind of playing catch up a little bit, but moving forward, this is going to be more of a weekly segment. But number 5, we just mentioned him. Our first top dog is the brand new face of the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, a title every football player dreams of. We mentioned him earlier, but hey, whether it's one of those things where it's like, whether you like the way Williams carries himself or not, with the paint and nails, his swagger is borderline cocky. He's the first real NIL star where you know this kid's been a millionaire for a couple years. So people are kind of rooting against him, but there's no denying on the field he's an elite talent and he has a chance to take the NFL by storm. It's really going to come down to is that Chicago Bears offense going to be clicking on all cylinders or not. But Caleb Williams, top pick in the draft, former Heisman winner, kind of an icing on the cake moment. He gets the top dog, number 5 on the list. Number 4, got a USC theme here, and I'm not a USC guy, but we'll roll with it. Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back. Let's throw it back. It's about 2 weeks ago. It's one of the most, if not the most explosive player in college football history. Reggie Bush deserved his Heisman Trophy back. Bush never should have had his Heisman taken away, but especially with the modern era of NIL deals and money being thrown around college football left and right, it was only time. It was long overdue, really. But USC Trojan legend Reggie Bush deserved that award back. He did it. For those who have not watched much Reggie Bush highlights, I'm sure most of the people watching and listening, you're in that demographic. Like myself, we grew up watching Reggie Bush. Dude was unreal. That being said, his USC highlights are in like a short list of highlights out there. They're like Michael Jordan highlights on the Bulls, young LeBron highlights on the Cavs, maybe his first couple years with the Heat, Ken Griffey Jr. hitting home runs. Reggie Bush is on that list. His highlights were unreal, and it's definitely well deserved. He got his Heisman back. He's one of our top dogs, no doubt about that. Number 3 on the list, we're also throwing it back for this one. Should have probably been number 1, but it was about a month ago. So we're going Max Holloway for the knockout versus Justin Gaethje. I mean, this was one of the biggest moments in the history of mixed martial arts. UFC superstar, the baddest mofo on the planet, delivers as the top dog. No doubt about that. I mean, the last second knockout of Gaethje, as most of you know by now, Holloway pointed the middle of the ring, and it was on. Both fighters going at it in a flurry. Final bell's about to ring. Holloway connects, sends Gaethje to the canvas. That's it. One of the greatest knockouts in the history of the sport. One of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport. And no doubt, a well-deserved top dog. All right, last two top dogs and we're done. Anthony Edwards, we mentioned it before, but he sent his idol Kevin Durant and the Suns to Cancun, sent them packing. He had a breakout playoff performance, and now he has the T-Wolves up versus the MVP and the defending champion Denver Nuggets, and poised to take the Wolves to their second ever Western Conference title game. Their first trip was with KG back in 2003-2004. So the T-Wolves, this is not typically the type of organization they are, and it's been a long time coming. They do have a lot of top-tier players in the sense they have been building that thing. Gobert, Towns, I like Mike Conley. But Edwards has been the guy that put them over the top. He recently joined Kobe as the youngest players in NBA history with back-to-back 40-point games, and just an absolute dog. You could even say a wolf. All right, that was a little corny, but I had to throw in the T-Wolf joke. But yes, Anthony Edwards, number 2 on our top dogs. And last but definitely not least, Jalen Brunson. He's put the city of New York on his back and made the Knicks relevant once again. He joined MJ, Jerry West, and another member of Knicks royalty, Bernard King, as the only players in NBA history to rattle off 4 straight 40-point games in the playoffs. Brunson's the real deal, and with the Knicks up 2-0 on the Pacers, don't sleep on Brunson and the Villanova Knicks to make it out of the East. It feels like a real possibility. Jalen Brunson versus Anthony Edwards, they've probably been the 2 biggest stars of this playoffs. That could become a finals matchup. And maybe Minnesota isn't your typical primetime organization when you think of big markets, but the Timberwolves and the Knicks would be one heck of an NBA Finals, and that would be must-watch for every basketball fan out there. So number 1 on our top dogs, no doubt about it, is New York Knicks superstar Jalen Brunson. Number 2 was Anthony Edwards. 3 was Max Holloway. 4 was Reggie Bush. And number 5 was Caleb Williams. All right, that's it, y'all. First episode back, The Zone with JD, getting the ball rolling, getting back in the lab, and just trying to get back in the zone. Thank you for taking the time to check it out. As always, if you guys have any input, hit me on Twitter, The Zone with JD. Hit me on Instagram, The Zone Sports _. You know where to find me. I want your guys' takes, input, opinions, anything like that. Let me know. Anybody want to get on here as a guest, feel free to reach out. But a lot of good sports talk coming. This is just the start, the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for taking the time to check out the show. Your boy, JD Dugan. I'm out.